In the past days, Sayadaw has been speaking about Jhana. Jhana means to observe or contemplate the object fully and closely. Where we put the mind, the object on which we put the mind, if the mind sticks to it, then the nivaranas, the obstacles to concentration, are automatically eliminated. The factors, the jhanic factors of vitakka, aiming, vichara, rubbing, piti, joy, sukha, happiness, ekagata, one-pointedness, burns up the nivaranas. So the yogis observe the arising object closely, with effort and aiming, and before long, the nivaranas disappear. We don't observe the nivaranas or other objects in order to make them disappear. We observe the nivaranas so as to know them. So when this full observation power of jhana is good, then the nivaranas, the qualities which prevent wholesomeness, kusala, which make the mind dirty and which weaken knowledge, are burned up by the factors of the jhana. So this quality of being able to burn up the opposing factors is called jhana. And Sayadaw has spoken about this for 2 days now. And today he will speak about how many kinds of jhana there are. So now the yogis understand the basic meaning of jhana, but it's very important to know how many kinds of jhana there are. It's said in the text, jhana nama duvidam. That means that there are 2 types of jhana. So first of all, it said aramanupane jhanansa. This is the first type of jhana. Aramana upanijayana. So this means the contemplation, full contemplation, close contemplation of objects such as worldly objects, such as kasinas, such as the earth kasina, and so on. And there are 28, or by another method, there are 40 different types of objects that are employed in this aramanupane jhana. And whatever, one takes one of these 28 objects or 40 objects and kind of fashions it in the mind. They make that object in the mind and observe it without remainder. They observe it in its entirety. And the second type, lakanupane jhanansa. So this is observing the individual characteristics, the individual true nature of phenomena, sabhava, and the common characteristics of phenomena, samanya lakkhana. So there's rupa, nama, and past knowledge, fruition knowledge, nibbana. So past knowledge is that which uproots the kilesas. This is its quality. Fruition knowledge is what cools them down after they've been uprooted. And nibbana is like that place where kilesas are put out, that cool element. It's not really a place. And Vipassana knowledge is that which can see the true nature of ultimate reality. those who have the worldly jhanas or absorptions take one of the 28 or 40 objects, such as earth, water, fire or air, patui, apo, tejo, vayo. And for example, with patavi, the earth, they make a square of earth. And they focus on this and repeating in their mind, earth, earth, focusing on this square of earth. They reflect on it. So they make that their mental object. Or one can make one's object a color, like white or red, blue. Or another concept such as loving kindness. One can conceptualize all beings and develop the feeling of loving kindness. May all beings be well, happy, and peaceful. So one makes an object, whatever object one wants to contemplate. One creates that object in one's mind, and one contemplates it without a break. And this is called Aramanupani Jhana. The object of Aramanupani Jhana is not ultimate reality. It is a concept, some sort of concept, called in Pali Panyati. And that concept is used as an object to gain concentration. So one contemplates this repeatedly in one's mind. And this is just enough to let you know the essence of it. It's something that would take a long time to explain if Sayadaw were to go into details. So this is all he wants to say about it. So Loki, worldly jhanas or absorptions are done to gain worldly jhana. And this leads to birth in the Brahma realms. Or the worldly absorptions can be used as a basis for crossing over to developing Vipassana knowledge and working for liberation. Or they can be used to develop psychic powers. But these are all things that Sayadaw does not want to go into. Lakhanupani Jhana, the observation of Lakhana, characteristics. This includes Vipassana. It includes Megha-jnana, path knowledge. It includes fruition knowledge, Pala-jnana. And also it includes Nibbana, which is the object of these. So each of these things, they have their own respective characteristics. And Sayadaw cannot explain this in detail. It's not appropriate to explain it at this point because it's not something that is known yet by the yogis in practice. So he will just say that Magga or path is that which dispels the kilesas. And it eliminates the kilesas. And fruition or pala is that which makes them die down. And nibbana is like the place where kilesas die, or the place where rupa and nama, this rising and passing away, come to an end. So this is a brief explanation of these. And Sayadaw would like to focus at this point on Vipassanupani Jhana, this jhana which involves Vipassana. In the compound word Lakhanupani Jhana, there are three words: Lakhana, upa, and nijana. Lakhana means characteristic. And here it refers to the characteristic of matter or rupa, the characteristic of mind or nama. So a characteristic is how we know something. It's that which marks a certain thing. We call that the characteristic of that item. So rupa is something which does not know. It is known, it does not know. So because it does not know, it is called anaramana in Pali. It does not take an object. It does not know the object. And it is also something which breaks down. It changes. So this thing is called rupa in Pali. It has the characteristic of breaking down. And nama is that which knows the object. So these nama and rupa, or mind and matter, mentality and physicality, are really there in every being. In Pali, they are called rupa nama or nama rupa. So these two are really there, and they are related as cause and effect. They have the nature or the characteristic to arise and then pass away. Having arisen, they pass away. They die in a second. What dies is not good. And it has no self, no atta. There's no jiva atta, and it also does not behave at the command of parama atta. It's something that these are things, nama and rupa, which arise due to causes, and they have their own nature, their own characteristic. So these are some of the characteristics of nama and rupa, and to know these, we observe them when they happen. So this type of observation, close observation of their characteristics, is called lekhanupani jhana. The rupa and nama, the matter and mind that is within one, is definite. What is happening inside other people's beings is not definite for us. Whatever their rupa and nama may be is hard to know. So therefore we observe the rupa and nama that is inside of us. For example, when we sit, we put the mind on the abdomen in order to observe the rising and the falling. And when we breathe in, the abdomen expands. And there's the expansion of the abdomen, and there's also the characteristics that we may feel of stiffness or tension. And one observes this closely, making effort. Later, sati arises, and then, following that, the mind falls collectedly on that object. So for the knowing mind and the rising for the mind to be focused exactly on the rising, one needs aim. So in order to do this, every time the abdomen rises, every time the abdomen falls, every time any other object arises, whatever object it is, we apply effort and aiming. And we use a label of whatever it is, we label it. And doing this, the mind becomes concurrent with the object. That is, because the aim is accurate, the mind starts to rub against the object, and this is called vichara. So we have to develop these factors: accurate aim, and the quality of being concurrent, which is vichara. These are jhanic factors. And we observe the object carefully in order to bring these factors about. Why this is because we want to see the natural characteristics of nama and rupa, of the rising and the falling. We want to see their individual true nature. So when we breathe in, the abdomen rises, and breathe out, the abdomen falls. Every time the abdomen rises, every time the rising is there, the mind goes there to know it. So one sees that due to this cause of the rising is there, and therefore the knowing mind arises to observe it. So what one sees, in essence, what we are watching is rupa and nama. And these things are cause and effect. So in order to know these, we are observing, both to know the individual characteristics of rupa and nama, matter and mind, and to know how they are related as cause and effect. So focusing like this is called Lekhanupanijana, this type of focused observation. The object that we use in Vipassana are the things which are really there, such as rupa, the rupa which is the physicality which is really there. And this has two types, that which is obvious and that which is not, that which is evident or easy to see and that which is not. So we start with what is easy to see. In the body there are 4 elements. And for example, there's in the body we feel things that are rough or hard or soft or coarse. If we feel a bony area of the body, then we feel hardness. If we feel the skin or muscle, fleshy area, we feel softness. So in either of these, in things like the bones, which are hard, or the muscles and flesh which are soft, the earth element is what is predominant. The earth element is the main thing in that type of sensation. When sweat flows, when tears flow, when we have a runny nose, and so on, this is characteristic of the water element. This is the flowing nature of water is predominant. Or we may experience things as a lump, like we may feel a cold lump, things sticking together as a whole, or a hot lump. These two are the water element. The water element is what is evident at that time. Just the way there can be the flowing manifestation, the flowing characteristic of the water element, it also can be something solid and like a lump. The element of temperature, or tejo dhatu, has the characteristics of heat, warmth, cold, and lightness. So when heat is predominant, that's what is that is the hot form of tejo. When coldness is what is obvious to us, that's the cool form of tejo. And there can also be lightness as the manifestation of tejo. So these are the characteristics of the element of temperature. And what knows this is nama, or mentality, or mind. There's also stiffness, tension, tightness. Sometimes the muscle feels tight, sometimes the skin feels tight, or there can be relaxation or movement. These are all evident in the body. And these are the air element, which is rupa. So these are all forms of rupa. And the most obvious of all these elements is the stiffness, tension, tightness, movement, and so on, which is characteristic of Vayu Dhatu, the air element. And therefore, Vipassana yogis start out by observing this. And when we sit, we observe what happens when the air goes in and the abdomen rises and falls. And then there's the knowing of these physical things. Knowing roughness, knowing softness, knowing flow, knowing the flowing thing, knowing solidity, knowing heat, knowing cold, knowing stiffness, tension. Knowing is nama, or mentality. For example, as Sayadaw said, when you listen to the sound of his voice, the sound is entering into the yogi's ear. And within the ear, there's a type of matter or rupa which can receive the sound. It's capable of receiving the sound. And that is physical. Also, the sound waves are physical. And when the waves of sound strike this receptor that is within the ear, that which is capable of hearing, there's hearing consciousness. The mind knows the sound. There's the quality of the mind and the sound meeting at the ear base. And then there's the feeling. It may be a pleasant sound, so then it feels good to hear. It may be an unpleasant sound that feels bad to hear. Or it may be a sound which is neither pleasant nor unpleasant, and then it's medium. So these three things, knowing, the sense of contact, and the feeling, good or bad, good, bad, or neutral, are nama, or mentality. So in the moment of hearing, the ear and the sound, these two parts are physical, or rupa. And then hearing, contact, and feeling, these three are mind. The same thing happens with smelling, tasting, touching, seeing. In each of these, there's a receptor which can receive the sense object, and the sense object which strikes the receptor, and the consciousness knowing the object, the contact, and feeling. So each type of rupa has its own characteristic. The receptor is that which can receive the sound or the striker. The object, the sense object, is that which strikes its particular receptor, sense space. And nama is that which knows. And different types of nama have different individual characteristics, but the basic thing is that they know. So these individual characteristics are called sabhava lakkhana, or sarasa, or individual characteristic. So to know the individual characteristic of what is involved, one has to observe at the very moment of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, rising, falling, lifting, moving, placing, bending and stretching. And in these moments, there's rupa and nama, the physical and the mental, occurring in a series, one after another. There's also cause and effect, occurring in a series, one after another. In order to see this, we have to apply effort and aim so that the mind can focus accurately on the object and become concurrent with it. And this is called Lekhanupani Jhana. So close observation or contemplation of the object like this, because it focuses closely on the object, sticking to it and observing it fully, it's called jhana. So the yogis know about this meaning of jhana. And yogis also know by now how this close observation of jhana burns up the nivaranas, the obstacles to concentration. And this jhana has two kinds, Aramanupani jhana and Lakanupani jhana. This is a recap. So Aramanupani jhana is observing, contemplating a conceptual object in order to make the mind calm. Lakanupani jhana is observation of phenomena that is really there, rupa and nama, in order to know its true nature. Aramanupani jhana is also called samatha jhana. Samatha means that it is the type of jhana which dispels the kilesas which oppose jhana. So this is why it's called samatha. So this word samatha jhana is just another word for Aramanupani jhana. So Lakanupani jhana is the type of jhana that takes as its object the individual and common characteristics of ultimate reality, nama and rupa. And another name for this is Vipassana jhana. So therefore, Aramanupani jhana is also called samatha jhana. And Lakanupani jhana is also called Vipassana jhana. So to make it easy, there are two types of jhana. One is samatha jhana, and the second is Vipassana jhana. And so the yogis need to understand that there are these two types. And when one understands this, then it is easy to explain these in theory and practice. And for this, Sayadaw needs to say a little bit more. So the difference between samatha jhana and vipassana jhana is that samatha jhana is the contemplation of one single object. There's no need in samatha jhana to observe a variety of objects. One just takes a single object. And samatha jhana is not done to gain knowledge. It is done to gain one-pointedness or ekagata. So therefore, one can think of samatha jhana as jhana done in order to produce calmness. Vipassana jhana is done in order to know the true nature of things which are really there, to know their individual and common characteristics. Another way to look at how they are different is that samatha jhana takes concept or paññatti as its object, whereas vipassana jhana takes as its object ultimate reality. So tomorrow Sayadaw will continue to explain this in terms of theory and practice. That's all for today. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.